There's this tall, tattooed brunette with a big butt. She goes to my university gym, and I always see her there. And eventually, one day, I work up the courage to talk to her, and I'm really nervous the whole time, like my hands are literally shaking. Whenever I went to talk to her, I was really awkward about it, almost like begging her for attention, and she always seemed a bit reluctant, or like, not fully into the conversation, you know what I mean. And then one day, me and my friends, we notice her talking with like this guy who's more muscular than me, a bit taller than me. My friend is looking at the table where they're sitting, it's close to ours, and she points out to me that she's laughing at his jokes, she's smiling to him, she's really engaged with him, she's looking at him away, and he's like, yeah, she really likes him. Like, you can tell like a huge difference between courting and just, like, talking. Like, you can tell when two people have the hots for each other, and this is it. I feel inferior while he's saying this, and angry, like, I'm just naturally worth less than him. Like, he just walks up to her and just naturally, like, gets her attention. She's eager for him, while I basically have to, like, almost subconsciously beg for just a pittance. Like, she literally, like, is just talking to me because she feels bad for me. I'm sitting trying to enjoy my breakfast. It's an omelet with meat and vegetables in it and some fruits. I'm sitting there trying to focus on my food, not looking at the table. I try to avoid looking at them as much as possible. I'm not even looking at my friend as he's relating this to me, and he keeps badgering me about it, like, repeatedly over and over and over again, over and over and over again. I hear his voice saying these things to me, and maybe every now and then I hear, like, a laugh from their table. The bright lights of the dining hall and the bright colors of the table do not match my mood at all. Eventually, like, I put my fist down, and I look at my friend, and I'm like, dude, I heard you the first time. Could you shut it? Could you shut it, please? I heard you the first time. I don't need you to keep relaying it. My face felt red because I was, like, confronting him, which I don't usually do. When I was alone in my dorm, I had a Femdom fantasy where I was serving a girl, giving her food, cooking her food, preparing her clothing, doing her laundries, doing secretary work for her, planning appointments for her, doing everything for her, for just a scrap of attention where she would, like, pet my head or cuddle me a little bit, but never anything more. And that turned me on. And to be perfectly honest, I felt a little happy, but only if the illusion was maintained that this was a temporary play and that she really did love me. The fact of the matter is, you've probably entertained thoughts every now and then, like, I'm okay being someone's pet. Like, you're probably not. You clicked on this video because either you're interested in femdom, or you're interested in findom, or both. Probably both. It recently occurred to me that these two are not really female domination per se. For me, femdom, where you serve the woman and do whatever she wants, is relatively new. For most of my life, femdom was me getting praised and rewarded, or me being punished and degraded, all according to what I wanted. I never really thought about what the other person wanted. I just naturally assumed she wanted the same thing. It was only when I actually served a mistress that I realized, oh, okay, this is what she wants. I'm doing what she wants. This is different from what I imagined. I told her this imaginary scenario when I went behind her and, like, hugged her and said, I love you. And then she brought her leg up from the back and, like, kicked me in the groin with it, and she was like, I did not give you permission to love me, or I didn't give you permission to hug me or something. And she responded like, I don't know why you always imagine me as such a cold dom. And that's when it occurred to me that, like, most of my fantasies were, like, with really cold and distant mistresses, where, like, I was doing a lot for them and, like, being really affectionate for them, and they just responded with cold indifference most of the time. More like they suffered me or tolerated me rather than, like, truly had affection for me. But I coped, like, oh no, they have affection for me deep down. This is just our dynamic. It occurred to me that the reason why I fantasize that way is because that's my experience with women most of the time. Throughout school, it felt like I was just, like, being very affectionate, being, like, very loving, and, like, they would give me scraps of attention as a pittance here and there. And this occurred to me when I realized the lunchroom example, like, oh wait, this isn't the way it is between most couples who, like, have a thing for each other. Like, most couples, they're both engaged in each other. The woman is just as engaged in the man, laughing at his jokes and smiling and paying attention to everything he says, just as engaged as he is. if not more. I remembered relationships like that in high school too, where the woman asked the guy out first and the woman was head over heels with the guy. I remembered relationships where like the guy was talking to me and the woman was just staring at everything he said. I remember friends I had who literally had women come on to them who were very forward with it and persistent with it. Women who were giving them lots of attention despite the guys not giving them much attention because they didn't reciprocate. And I realized, like, oh yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be. Women and men are both supposed to be like very passionate about each other. And the reason why I have this femdom fantasy where like I give a lot of love and the woman doesn't give much but just pities me is because that's what most of my crushes have resulted into. A lot of people think femdom is working through your trauma, and it can be, but it wasn't really me working through my trauma. It was more like me hyper-focusing on this trauma and blowing it up to proportion and turning it into a fetish. This leads us to Femdom. Because I believe Femdom is definitely in the same boat where you're just living trauma instead of dealing with it. So when you think about what a stereotypical, like if you're in the macho red pill space, like you've heard like guys say like, oh, women only care about money. Money makes women extremely easy. They'll bend over backwards for you when you have a lot of money. And when you hear about how much women care about money, it makes them seem like gold diggers where like, and honestly it feels like you're just a worker bee where like you just exist to make money and then the woman just gets to like relax, take care of the family, take care of the children while living off of your work. That's the best analogy. Worker bee, living for and working for the queen. And this is not the way it is. Like the woman supports the man and the man supports the family, but like it's not like you're just working until you die for your woman. That's not the way it is at all. The woman is also taking care of things because she genuinely wants to live with you and can't imagine life without you. But if you hyperfixate on this, like, oh, I'm a man, my job is to work until I die to give this woman money for her to live at home, a relaxed lifestyle. Like, if that's how you view women, like, yeah, it's no wonder they would develop a Femdom fetish, where, like, they're giving money to women so that these women can be cruel to them and show them, like, a bare smidge of affection. It's literally an enhancement of a stereotypical, like, cliche bad wedding in the sitcoms, where, like, the guy works, he's overworked, and then he comes and gives all the money to his wife, and she gives him a small allowance, and every now and then she gives him pity sex, and she's not crazy about him, she kind of looks down on him, but they're married, they love each other deep down, they have to stick together. Like, you've taken this bad cliche for a relationship, you blew it up to proportion, and made it into a fetish. You're not dealing with your trauma. You're reliving it over and over and over again and developing a fixation on it. So how do we solve this? Honestly, most of it is just what I've told you. Like, hopefully, if I've convinced you why your femdom and femdom fetishes are probably not working through trauma, they're just making your trauma worse, and hyperfixing on unhealthy views of relationships and love. If I've convinced you, that should be most of the work done. Like, now it's literally just reminding yourself of that over and over and over again. So what you can do for this is journal. Journal about it. Ask yourself, whenever you make a statement, ask yourself questions. Don't take anything for granted. Question why you think what you do. Question where these views came from. Are they innate? Did you learn them from somewhere? Someone? Society? Something? Was there an event? Ask yourself the same question over and over and over again to see if your answer stays the same. This is a tactic police officers do. They ask you the same question over and over again to see if your answer changes. And honestly, just put down your first answer. Don't think about it too hard. My best journaling is when I just trust the first answer that comes to mind, and then I write it. And if it doesn't sound convincing, sometimes I'm like, this is the first thing that came to mind, but I don't really think that's the reason. Then I just give something, then I think about it. Then I dig deeper. But yeah, journal, make time for journaling once a week, and like, just write, and see what you think. That's the only real actionable thing I can give for this. It's not your fault that you ended up like romanticizing your trauma. Like, that's the easier thing. Like, plenty of people do it. I heard that like there were Jewish women from the concentration camps who started developing a fetish for men dominating them in Nazi uniforms. It's a common thing to fetishize your trauma. I think it's actually the biggest reason why fetishes exist, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that, like reliving your trauma in a controlled scenario, as long as you're actually working through it. Not magnifying it and blowing it out of proportion and hyperfixing on it and turning it into something worse. Because that's what I think, like, fetishes like cucking and Femdom do. They just hyperfixate on like this unhealthy and like small aspect, like, oh yeah, you work and like the woman stays at home while you make money. You're hyperfixing on something so small and like unhealthy and making it worse. Same thing with cucking, like you're worried about some other guy being more masculine and fucking your woman. Like, that's something so small and insignificant, and it's easily dealable. Just exercise and get better. What I did, I was hyperfixing on like the fact that I give like a lot of love to these women who don't love me back. The answer is like work on myself, make myself respectable, have higher standards. And yet no, I was making this traumatic thing even worse. So it's not your fault. You just gotta choose the road less traveled, like me here. I'm not on the trail right now. I am on the road less traveled. If you want more immediately applicable advice for your life, rather than those BS entertainment videos that don't change anything, and if you're tired of all those hyper macho red-pilled guys who don't understand you, click the subscribe button. I got a lot more videos you're gonna like. We're all gonna make it, boys. Ciao. Now, I have to make it out of this forest with a busted ass after sitting on that rock for the past, I don't know how long. Bye.